Hello everybody, this is another Hot Wheels collector video. Today we are looking at the BMW i8 Roadster done in black. This is actually a brand new car for the 2023 M case. This is sort of a new casting. The only time we've actually seen it before this time in the mainline is actually in the ID series. And then it just never appeared ever since, and we actually thought it was just going to be one of them cars where it only appears once and then never gets used again. But it is here in the mainline. They've done a decent job on it. I definitely think they could have done better, and I think it's odd the kind of tampo choices they chose over other tampos. We will get into all that in just a second, but first of all I'm going to mention where I actually found this car. So I did find this car in an actual pound stretcher store, and that was with the Alfa Romeo new casting, the GT-V6, the car that I'd been hunting down for months. This was one of the cars I was going to pass up because of the tampo work being quite hit and miss, to be honest. There's definitely some things which I think should have been chosen over other things, but as I've said, we'll get into that in the later sections of this video. But yeah, I wasn't actually going to get this. There was obviously the silver variant which came before it. Did not like that at all, but I do think the black variant is much nicer than the silver one. I definitely think that the lack of front tampo work is definitely less noticeable on this one for some reason, and it does look a lot more full and complete in my opinion. But anyways, let me give you the facts about the real life car before we get into the showcase of the Hot Wheels model. So in real life, this car has a 1.5 litre BMW twin power turbo 3-cylinder engine and electric e-drive motor. That all produces 369 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque. That converts to 571 newton meters of torque. That's obviously the total power output for the car, but the actual engine that this car has produces 228 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque, converting to 319 newton meters of torque. This car also has a 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. That's actually 0.2 seconds slower than the coupe variant of this car. I found that was quite an interesting fact there. This car also has a top speed of 155 miles per hour, at least according to BMW. That might be a bit generous because obviously we are talking about the manufacturer here. The manufacturers usually give their cars the benefit of the doubt. That's kind of to be expected. And that converts to about 250 kilometers per hour. This car also features an all-wheel drive system. This car will also cost you £127,000 if you want one new right now in 2023. And that converts to $157,000 US. But anyways, that's it for the facts about this car. Now let's get into the showcase of the Hot Wheels model. Alright, so kicking off this showcase, we'll first of all take a look at the side of this car, and I'll first of all mention the wheel choice on this thing. So this car is rolling on the 10-spoke wheels, which have been painted in a chrome colour. I do think the chrome wheels go fantastically with the black colour of the rest of the car. I've already just mentioned that the rest of this car is painted in glossy black. It is not a metallic colour, and there's actually no side tampo work on this car. One thing I will mention about the casting on this side though is the fuel filler cap features on this side. You can also see some of the side skirt of this car is actually created using the base plastic, and that base plastic is in a very dark grey colour. It's not quite a black colour. I'm pretty sure that is intentional to kind of separate the body colour of the car and the side skirt as well as some of the front bumper section of the car. I will mention that this casting does not feature any wing mirrors, unfortunately. That is a big miss in my opinion. I really do like it when the Hot Wheels castings do feature them, and without them they kind of look a bit silly. Finally, I will mention that all the windows on this car are actually wound up. Anyways, that's really it for the side of this car. Now let's move on to the front of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the front of this car, this is a big miss in my opinion, the front. I don't know why the Hot Wheels team decided that the BMW badge was so important to tampo on the car, instead of doing the entire front of the car. You will notice that the headlights as well as the grille do not receive any tampo whilst they are in the actual metal casting. Yet there is this nice little BMW badge which features on the hood of the car. That is the most odd choice I think I've ever seen from the Hot Wheels team. Why on earth they chose the BMW badge, other than cost cutting, to tampo on this car is beyond me. It just looks a bit silly. Now on the silver version of this car, it looked so bare up front that it just looked horrible in my opinion. But this black one does a decent job at disguising it, and it actually doesn't look too bad. You can actually see that the headlights do feature in the metal casting, and you could add your own details using sharper acrylic paint to add the detail. And the same thing goes for the grills on this car, but it is a big shame that the Hot Wheels team didn't do it from the factory. It definitely should have been done in my opinion over that BMW badge, but that's just me. You can also see there are two small vents which feature on the bottom of the front bumper of this car as well. They are in the metal casting as well. They don't actually need tampo really. because they already look decent enough. And finally, I'll mention the middle section of the front bumper / splitter area is actually created from the grey base plastic. Very interesting design choice there, but it is quite nice. It does add a very subtle colour split. It's very difficult to see, but once you see it, you kind of can't unsee it. It does look quite nice. Anyways, that's it for the front of the car. Now let's move on to the next side of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the next side of this car, you can see there is no difference between this side and the other side of this car, so I'm not going to bore you and go over everything here. There really isn't all that much to go over, to be honest, but the one thing I will mention is there is this little fuel filler cap here as well, but actually I think this is the hybrid charging point, not the one over the other side. I think that's simply just for fuel. I think the one featuring on the front fender area of this car is actually for the hybrid charging system. I'm pretty sure that's the way around. Somebody will definitely know in the comments, so please do feel free to let me know. Anyways, that's really it for this side of the car. Now let's move on to the next side of the car, that being the rear. Alright, so taking a look at the rear of this car, quite a nice amount of tampo work here. It definitely does make up for the lack of detail at the front, in my opinion, although it's still something that I still am not a big fan of, the front section of the car. It does grow on you and it doesn't look so bad on the black one, but that silver one just looked awful. I can't believe how bad they did a job on that thing, and why they chose silver is beyond me as well on such a bare looking car. But anyways, I'm going on a complete rant here. Taking a look at the rear then, we do have the rear lights which have been tampoed in red. You can also see the eDrive logo has also been tampoed, but this time in a white tampo. You can also see the BMW badge has also been tampoed. I think one BMW badge is enough to have been tampoed. I really don't think the one on the hood needed to be prioritised over the entire front section of the car. And the i8 badge also does feature here, hopefully you can see that, tampoed in white as well. You can also see the reverse lights have been tampoed in white, and the reflectors, or maybe even they are fog lights, I'm not sure which one they are, but either way they are tampoed in red as well. And one final thing I will mention is in the actual metal casting, you can see there is a nice license plate holder. Quite nice to see that there. It is a nice detail. Anyways, that's really it for the rear of the car. There is a slight amount of detail in terms of the actual metal casting. You can see two nice small vents here on the car as well. They're just kind of for aesthetic, I think, looks anyway. But there you go. That's really it for the rear of the car. Not a whole lot more to talk about. Let's move on to the top of the car. Alright, and taking a look at the top of this car, there is quite a nice amount of detail here. First of all, I will mention the nice vents in the actual metal casting on the hood of the car. They are very nicely done and they're actually featured in the metal body of the car. They do sort of look like they would have been created using the interior plastic, but they're not. They're actually painted the same colour as the rest of the body, and that tells you that this is part of the metal casting. You can also see the nice interior of this car, pretty nicely detailed there, and is done in a quite lightish grey colour. Very nice to see that there. Finally, you can see this small amount of detail on the trunk section of this car. It's in the metal casting itself, and that is actually made to represent the folding roof that this car does obviously have, with it being a Roadster. That is the bit that flips up and then the roof can go in and out of that compartment. Very nice to see that little bit of detail in the metal casting of this Hot Wheels model. Oh, and one thing I almost forgot to tell you is there are no windshield wipers on this car. It is just a small detail that is missing, however it is a detail that is missing nonetheless, and that is definitely going to affect my rating just a small bit. But anyways, that is it for the showcase of this Hot Wheels model. Now let's move on to my final thoughts and review on this thing. Alright, so now it's time for my final thoughts and review on this car. I really do like the actual casting itself. I think it gets the i8's looks across very well. However, I do have a few issues with the car. Firstly, the missing wing mirrors is just a huge miss, I think. It definitely looks like something is missing on the car and something really is missing. I always use this analogy, but it kind of looks like a human without any ears. It just doesn't look right. Next up, this car does not have any windshield wipers. Again, that's just a small detail, but it is not very nice to not have them. It's definitely a nice feature when cars do have them. And with this casting not even being that old, from about 2018-2019 time, it is a shame to not see both of these details on this car. And finally, the last thing I don't like about this car is the fact that it has no front tampo work, and they chose to do the BMW badge over the front tampo. That is a huge miss and a complete wrong call, I think, from the Hot Wheels team. The only reason that I know of why they've probably done that is to cost cut, which is not a good thing to say really on Hot Wheels cars. But yeah, big shame on that. But yeah, I really do like the colour choice on this car as well. The black suits it fantastically compared to that greyish silver we had previously. And I also like the chrome coloured wheels. But anyways, that really leads me on to my score out of 10. Why of this car out of 10? It's going through receiving a okay 7 out of 10. The reason why it's so low is because of that front tampo work. Really, that's the only thing that's dropping it, because I always deduct 0.5 points when there's no wing mirrors, and yeah, the rest of that being so low is because of that front tampo work missing. It's just not really that great, and it makes the car look so bare in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think it should be even lower on the score ranking? I know there'll be people who will definitely argue that. But anyways, that really is it for this video. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure you like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and also press that notification bell so you not miss any new uploads. Remember, you can also share it with any friends, family, and any groups who may be interested in this video. But remember, don't feel pressure to if you don't feel like you have anybody who may be interested. You watching this video all the way to the end means so much to me, and I really do thank you for making it all the way up until this point. But anyways, that is it for this video, so I hope you guys did enjoy, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye bye everyone.